Some people who recommended me, I know I owe you beer someplace. Right? Yeah, right. A little more about my background, and give me just a little bit of feel too of what have we got for audience here. I know some of you are peers, and we got regular classroom teachers too. Where are our peers? I'm always glad that you sit in with teachers, because then you guys kind of get to hear all the same message. My background, we're the elementary principal.
Down front.
I was you for like 2 years. Also done that, yeah. Worst job I ever had in my life. Going, am I bleeding back here someplace? Bad job. Bless you. Prozac's great, isn't it? I was a classroom teacher for 6 years, back when junior highs used to be called junior high, so that kind of ages me. I am a FIAD major from UWL, Musclehead Tech. Okay. We were Indians back then.
I know, but I don't want to
be
date
Eagles
myself.
now because how many familiar with Love and Logic? I worked for them for 4 years, and they kind of flew me all over the United States, and I got a lot of frequent flyer miles and stuff like that. And I teach for UW-Platteville when I'm kind of bored, and I also do some clinical supervision for Viterbo University for their grad students in clinical counseling. The thing, though, that you probably want to know about is what kind of kids do I see on my caseload? I see all the scary dudes and scary chicks club member kids, the ones that nobody else wants to see. And I worked about 16 years, too, for Mayo. So, we start talking about birthdays. I won't tell you how many of those that I've had. But I've always kind of really been fascinated with a snarky kid. Frankly, they're entertainment for me, and great job security because there'll never be a shortage of them. So you're an amen on that one? Okay. How many in here have been in the field of education for at least 35 years? Okay, that's making me feel really old because I've been in the field for like 38 years. How many have at least 20? Okay. Let's start out a little bit. We'll call ourselves veteran staff, right? Okay. Are kids different now than what they used to be? This is the part where you guys say something like yes.
Yes.
What's different about them?
Less respect.
Okay, I'm into a lot of instant gratification. I want what I want, and I want it now. Boom. Okay. And that's where also you'll see a fair number of kids get misdiagnosed with attention deficit disorder. It's not truly attention deficit disorder. It's a variety of other things, and we can talk about that too a little bit later on. What else is different about it?
Don't do homework.
So they have that letter disorder, right? Called LAZY.
Yeah.
And some will also have that diagnosis spelled BRAT. And along with the other alphabet soup things like ADD and ODD. What else is different? Sense of entitlement. Yeah. Matt, just speak to that for one moment. You okay with that?
Paul, can we check, can everybody hear you, because there is a microphone there for you to use.
Yep, no.
I would
Okay,
encourage you to
use the microphone. All right. I have been accused of using my therapist's voice way too often.
Real mellow voice. I mean, he's not.
More better? Yes. Packer fans talk like that. Go Twins. We got monitors. That was better. Better? Last time I used one of these, I broke it. Actually, I think I was in Winona too when I broke it.
Go the other way. Take it the other way.
I have a wife at home. What? still work? I don't do better with the handheld ones too. So, okay, lost my train of thought. We were talking about sense of entitlement. Here's a concern I see. Let's see if I can find a marker that works here. Here's a concern I see a lot of times with kids. With this instant gratification stuff, you can all see from here, right? Okay. They kind of get addicted to a sense of entitlement. I believe that I should have all kinds of things given to me and don't expect me to work really, really hard. Now, I'm very much in favor of having nice things. My dream is to have the 740 black Beamer at some point in time, but I don't know if that's gonna happen on education salaries. So, all those high expectations are always okay if you have a work ethic that matches that. Lots of your kids, their effort and willingness to work hard to maintain this is lacking. Now, here's the problem that it starts to create. If you have kids that start heading into adolescence, and I haven't developed a good core work ethic, I now have created a kid that has absolutely no idea how to make themselves happy. So that sets my kid up automatically for what? Drug and alcohol use, all kinds of at-risk behaviors. Give you a real quick tip on how to crush this together, particularly if you have, how many in here have kids? So if I wind up including a few kid stories and Gasser kid stories, would that be helpful?
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't nod, because yesterday I was seeing patients, and if I have patients that are doing this, I'm thinking what? I'm thinking that medications are wrong. They have Tourette's. See, in my world of behavioral health, we kind of laugh about stuff like that. So, okay, one real quick tip is, and this is the value of being in a rural area, is that all kids have to have chores. That's not just a good idea, that's a gotta have idea. And that's one of the things that you choose to go ahead and teach kids tenacity, and it also helps build up self-esteem. Every kid should have at least 10 to 15 minutes of chores every night, and they have to be chores that are done without reminders. So if you're reminding the kid to do the chore, then it doesn't work. Because then it's all too much, you know, mom and dad kind of directing kids' behavior lots of times. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on, in different styles of behavioral management, whether it winds up being in the classroom or winds up being outside of the classroom. There's some things that I'd like to offer to you on how to better manage kids. But all kids need to have chores. They really have to have chores. And the first question that you would always want to ask a parent, and you kind of put, how many ever watch Columbo? You know Columbo? Okay. And Columbo kind of acts like this kind of, you know, like I have no idea what's going on type of deal, but, you know, he really kind of, he's sly like a fox. In your parent-teacher conferences, and how many times has this ever happened, where the parent is like, I can't get this kid to do anything. Your first question is, are they doing chores? I can't even get him to do that. Start back doing chores. In fact, one of the situations we had one time with my oldest daughter when she was in like 7th grade. And by the way, what's the beautiful thing about 7th grade? They offer it every year. Okay, cool. Good news. You don't do it this year, you know, you're welcome to go ahead and do it. Not a big deal. But she had these little happy grams that came in the mail called progress reports, like you're doing nothing but breathing air in the classroom and not a whole lot of work. And what we just did was, as I looked at them, I said, sweetheart, you know, I'm sorry I opened up some of your mail, but I did this because it was addressed to me, but it's really your mail. And I kind of handed it to her, and she looked at it, well, what do you want me to do about this? Like, I don't know. I thought you had that figured out. But because I'm a loving, kind, caring parent, I don't want you to do schoolwork anymore. It's not a big deal. And the good news is we always need to have people trained to work at the Holiday Inn. We always will need to have people cleaning rooms and stuff like that. So from now on in, forget the homework, and I want you to just, you know, do all kinds of Holiday Inn skills here at the Gasser home. So tonight we're going to start out with all the beds need to be changed and remade at least a minimum of 3 times. Showers need to be cleaned out to Gasser family standards. Well, I don't want to do that. You don't have to do it right now, but just know that it needs to be done before you eat. But no rush, you know, no rush. And this thing we did was, we did that for a whole week. It's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and go, I want to do my schoolwork. It's like, no. Chores need to be done first, then you do schoolwork. Because what am I teaching? That work ethic, that type of thing. So that's just a little freebie. Yes, please.
Probably gonna be a lot of questions for me.
good.
One of the things that I struggle with the most is when we talk about the work ethic and the sense of entitlement, I often will talk to parents, and I hear that exact thing. I cannot get them to do their homework at home, I can't get them to do anything at home. And I always ask, do they have a cell phone? What are they doing? Are they playing video games? Yes, for like 4 hours a night. I think to myself, take it away.
And I'll bet you the cost of the presentation today, watch your head go up and down when I say this. I can't take it away from them. So how about, as we talk a little bit today, I'm just kind of thinking a couple things I'd weave in, because I'm not married to that handout. I mean, we can cover it, but if we don't cover all of it, I'm okay. I want to make sure that you walk away with stuff that's really tangible. Because, like I said, a long time ago, I sat in those types of chairs. And you sit in staff-in services, and it's like, my God, I feel like I want to go to sleep, you know, and some of us, we go, you know, retail therapy shopping, you know, while we're still sitting here. But here's a couple things that I would maybe offer to you would be is, number one, let's start talking about enforceable statements. And see, lots of times parents have a real hard time letting kids fail. And how about, in just a second, because I want to make a cross comparison, let me put a bow on this thing and then I'm going to slide into. But once we get done with what I want to cover right now in a moment, how about I give you 4 steps to help kids become more responsible? That's the part where you guys say like yes or no. Because we only got, frankly, I only got 3 hours. And those of you who have heard me present before, you know I can talk like the whole day and fill it up, and I have no problem filling a day up. But okay, here's the point I wanted to come to. And I'll just lead you down to the path where we're going to go. I wanted to ask you, what's different about kids. One of the things I think that's clearly different about kids is that you're dealing with far more psychopathy than you've ever dealt with in the history of American education. And sadly enough, your state is very much like the state of Iowa, like the state of Missouri, the state of Wisconsin. There's this belief that if we have all these better teaching skills, these kids are just going to emerge and want to go ahead and go learn. That's why they have, in Wisconsin, we got the 20-core standard stuff. Okay? And they spend this inordinate amount of time trying to teach you to be better teachers, because the reason why the kids are doing poorly in school is because you suck as a professional. Really? You have a whole complete different type of kid coming to you than you've ever had in the history of education. Let me back it up. I'll just give you one statistic and then we'll move on, okay? As little as 20 years ago, there's only 3% of the kids that met diagnostic criteria for oppositional defiance disorder. Is everybody familiar with what that diagnosis is? Kind of yes, kind of no. Some of you are not because they see the deer in the headlight look. The oppositional defiance disorder, the ODD, is, let me just make it real quick and simple. This is the type of kid that if you have strep throat, you want to go breathe on them. In hopes of what? Look, it's sick. Why? Does this kid ever stay home? No, because nobody wants him at home. Send him to school. I mean, I even had one of these kids when I'm an elementary principal. The kid's got 103 temperature. I call the parent and go, give him an ice pack, he'll be fine. He'll walk it off. The kid's sick. But see, now the national statistic is it's 9%. In 20 years, it has done what? It's tripled. So the things that used to work years ago in the classroom with kids and discipline isn't going to work anymore. You have a whole complete different child coming to your schools. Most common mood disorder in public schools is anxiety. 17% of your general public meet the diagnostic criteria of anxiety. 40% of all kids diagnosed with ADD incorrectly diagnosed. Anxiety disorder. Okay, so is everybody in agreement that the kids are different than what they used to be? Yes. Youngins? Yes. Okay, listen to the people who are veteran staff, because yeah, that whole lesson plan stuff, that's all really, really important. But my stance on this is that until I get the behavior in line, good luck you at trying to teach in a classroom. Make sense? Yes. And even when I had graduated from UWL, and I was very pleased with the education I got there and I paid for, they led us to believe that if we wrote really cool lesson plans, these kids would run to come in and be like, oh my God. Praise Jesus. You know, and then see, now, at least in Wisconsin, we have this really wonderful governor like Walker. I mean, in all honesty, the guy's a narcissist. He loves to see himself in hypocrite. But he's got this belief in saying, well, you know, you people in schools, you just got way too many luxuries and you don't have enough kids in your classroom. Can I use kind of a biblical example for a moment? That won't offend anybody, will it? Okay, all right, this is probably saying no, but, you know, they have going sideways. It's another form of Tourette's. Take a look at the class size of Christ's very first class. How many did he have? Had 12. He had year-round school, didn't he? They had the looping, didn't they? They had the same students for 3 years. I mean, you want to talk about diversifying curriculum? That's a diversified curriculum. They did some really cool field trips. Great lab experiments. Where's the science teacher? Have you ever had the walking on water class? Did you teach turning the water into wine class? I'd sign up for that one. Now, bottom line was, did Christ graduate everybody? No, shoot, he went 11 for 12. He couldn't pull it off. How are you planning on pulling it off? I mean, I'm just saying it, right? Okay. All right. So, is everybody in agreement that we got a different breed of kid?
Yes.
Okay. Other things I was hoping somebody would say is, hey, we got a lot of parents that use mood-altering chemicals. 1 out of every 3 of your kids in your classroom comes from a family where a mom or dad abuses mood-altering chemicals. When you graduated in your Phi Ed class, did they teach you how to work with kids who came from crazy, chemically dependent families? See this?
Can I butt in and ask, when you say that, like, what do you mean? Because I'm really fancy and I'm from the farm and I don't get what that means.
No, you're not.
I don't know what to do by mood altering chemicals. I want you guys to define that so I get it.
Alcohol, pot,
Like prescription drugs.
prescription meds.
But
Yeah.
alcohol, pot.
Yeah. You guys are a little bit off the main track. No, my hometown is Toma. And what you'll tend to see in Toma is, where's it geographically located? Right on what highways? 90-94. Any community that you will have a lot of truck trafficking going through will just be a buffet of drugs and guns. A lot of guns, lots of drugs go through those. And how did I know that? Because one of my former patients was a state patrol officer, and he kind of filled me in on a whole bunch of stuff. So, the thing that you want to always keep in mind, and because of limited amount of time, I won't go real deep into that, but one of the big issues that you'll roll off and see with kids who come from crazy families is the whole issue of trust. See, crazy families will usually have 3 rules. Number 1, you don't talk about what's going on. And the main reason behind that is because they're convinced that they're crazy. And if they were to talk about it, then they'd know, everybody else would know that they're crazy. So they don't talk about things. Most of your kids are what kind of thinkers, concrete or abstract? Concrete. So are they able to step back and say, hey, my dad's pot smoking. It's really got nothing to do with me. It's got everything to do with him being, you know, chemically dependent. Other thing is that they learn not to deal with feelings and emotions. Do you have any little kids with bad tempers? Mm-hmm. See, a lot of your kids have problems with developing skills and how do you deal with stress. Let me just show you something for a moment. Is that marker went where? Here's it? I would lose my head if I wasn't glued on. Okay. Here's what happens. Got this whole issue of stress. Now, what our hope is that our little buggers have skills on how to deal and cope with day-to-day stress in the toolbox. So in your notes, just go ahead and write in here, toolbox for dealing with stress. If you don't have a real good toolbox, then what you start to develop is lots of what I call faulty thinking, AKA, in the world of psychology, stinking thinking. This is how they rationalize some of their behavior. I hit him because I did da-da-da. All right, all that crazy thinking now starts to fuel feelings and emotions, which starts to drive behavior. Remember back in your grad program, they said, oh, focus on how kids are feeling, focus on how they're feeling. You can't afford to do that. Insurance companies are not gonna pay for me to focus on feeling. They wanna know what. What are you doing with the behaviors? Right now, frankly, I don't care how you feel. I do care about how you think. That's what drives the bus when we start to turn kids around in regards to academic achievement. Because how many of you ever heard this? I can't read. I can't do that. What grade do most kids don't you give it away because you know the answer to this. What grade do most kids psychologically drop out of school? This is the part where you guys say something again. Kindergarten. Most all kids, you came in the summer, didn't you? Most all kids will drop out, and I'll give you an example about this later on, so we'll come back to it, and I won't put a lot of time into it right at the moment. Most all kids psychologically drop out of school in kindergarten. See, this is how you start to explain, why is it that kids are so fired up coming to school in kindergarten? They're torqued, aren't they? And by second and third grade, it's like, I hate school. Where did that come from? I'll teach you a little bit about how that came about and what we can do to kind of prevent that, because of course the title of the workshop is Creating High Academic Achievement. Okay, so, but here's the big deal thing. The big deal thing is if you grow up in a crazy family, what you learn to not do is trust adults, because they're not trustworthy. Now by fourth grade, what are the fourth grade teachers and parents? Okay, by fourth grade, you have to start to try to do things that you normally don't know, like division and math. Yeah.
Everything's getting shoved down, that's the problem.
Yep. My wife's a fourth grade teacher too, so, you know, and one of the things that she'll say real often is like, sweetheart, how do you start turning around kids' course of thinking? And see, the issue is this, I've gotta be able to develop that bond and that relationship with kids to get them to do things for me that they wouldn't do for anybody else. Does that make sense? See, if you look at people who are extremely successful, if you go into their backgrounds, you will always find somebody that was that magic person. That magic person that got them to do things when they didn't think that they could do it at all. I'd love to tell you that I think I'm this outstanding marriage and family therapist. I think I'm mediocre at best. But I'm never short of work to do. What's the key to it? I know how to build relationships with people. I put a lot of time into relationship building. And my number one referral source is people telling other people. I mean, I do have patients from up here in your area that come all the way down to down into Wisconsin to come be seen. And it's again because magical care has taken place? I don't think so. I think it's all about being able to develop those relationships. So the thing that I would, if I'm your building principal, and I don't mean to circumvent you at this point, but the one thing I'm more concerned about is not how well you're doing it right in your lesson plans. I'm more concerned about what? How you're connecting with kids. You know how you can always tell as a presenter, the teachers are doing a pretty good job in their buildings on connecting? Take a look at the building as you walk through it. That's why I got here a little bit earlier. I scoped you guys out. What did I find in your building? Vandalism, things used way too hard, stuff wrecked. Best place to check, bathrooms. Because what will kids do? I'll get back at you. You just don't know where or when, but I will get back at you. Yeah. You know what one kid did 20 years ago in Toma? Toma's the second largest busing district in the state of Wisconsin. It is huge. We got some kids that are on the bus well over an hour plus. We probably got 70, 80 buses. He went into the bus parking area on one weekend, caught all the brake lines where the side cutters that were there. Fortunately, we had a bus driver who did a real good pre-safety check, which is one of the things I'll stress for the bus drivers later this afternoon. Check your equipment. Had he not checked that, we got what? We got a huge problem. Because brakes don't go out right away until all the fluid's out of the master cylinder, because we have to create hydraulics, right? That could have been a huge problem. We've got a lot of vandalism in our building. You're gonna say something else, I can see it.
When you talk about building relationships, I 110% believe that. How do you respond to there's no time?
My thought, let's give people today some strategies that they can build relationships with kids with what I call the one-sentence intervention, and they can do it in 60 seconds or less, collectively. In fact, I'm so confident, watch Chuck's eyes light up on this one. If you use this strategy and you don't find kids are any better, in fact they're worse, call me, let me know, staff, because I'm gonna give you a warranty to this. If they're no better, I wanna know about it. And we're gonna go out for dinner, you pick an expensive place to eat, because I hate cheap food, okay? You pick, I'll pay, and we'll talk about Festus. Deal? See, the other thing would be is that I don't have time, you don't have time to not make time. Let me give you another example. What's the likelihood of having a repeat of Columbine here in your school district? Higher, lower, the same? Not at all. I'd adamantly argue with you on that, whoever said that. Yeah, I'd argue with that, till the cows came home. How many of your kids have access to firearms? See, 5 years before I started teaching in the Toma district, guess what? Kid came in with a Remington 870, all 5 rounds, he shot the principal with, killed him. I also did school consultant work with Weston Public Schools, where the kid shot the building principal when the janitor and the building principal were trying to wrestle, and they got the gun away from him, the rifle, didn't know the kid had a pistol. Shot through his coat, killed the principal. So this whole thing about guns, it's a real deal for this boy, you know, had lived through it type of thing. Let's talk about 4 steps how to get kids to be responsible, and then we'll cruise into this handout. Are you good with that? Okay. Now, let me give you a little background on what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. Okay? Let's see. This diagram right here, let's put a bow on this thing and finish this off. Will kids get involved in some type of behavior that's going to provide a temporary relief, aka video games? You know there's a new diagnosis for video addiction, and I'm not just blowing smoke at you. The new DSM-5 has that. And now what did I just create? What did I create? Cycle, right? In the center of that, right in there, that's an addiction. That's an addiction. An addiction is any behavior that you get engaged in that now starts to cause you negative consequences. So if your use of video games, cell phones, etc., is now causing you problems in your life, aka you don't do well academically, you're not getting enough sleep, that, my friend, is an addictive behavior. And see, what we'd want to do is to start to change this. I want to start addressing this faulty thought process. What I want to get you away from is not doing this, is that we try to direct lots of kids' decisions by a voice outside of their head. And we get into lots of talking, lots of explaining type of thing. My brief 2-year experience as an elementary principal, and one day I'm kind of talking to the hall Nazi, you know, who's monitoring kids coming out of the cafeteria and heading outside, and she spots this kid. What he's doing is he's crawling along the lockers like this, trying to sneak out without a coat, And she spots it. Where are you going? Where's your coat? I don't know. Well, if you're a coat, where would you be? And I'm thinking, shut up. This is the cheapest psychotherapy this kid is ever going to get going outside. The other thing, Chuck, you didn't know this. I was one of these little minions that got sent over to Russia. I was part of the INF treaty where we provided medical technology to the Russians and they weren't going to sell weaponry to the Mideast. Of course, that was another beautiful government policy that did not work well. In Russia, do they have indoor recesses? No, they don't. Why do we have indoor recesses? Also, in Russia, do they have lost and found boxes? How big's yours? See, we get into a lot of enabling. We do lots of talking, lots of rescue, lots of thinking. Come be my 5-year-old kid for a second, would you? What's your first name? Ange. Okay, here we go. See, here's the problem when we do lots of explaining. And this is what my staff did. My staff was always jack-jawed at it, all the time. In fact, one of my second grade teachers who announced to me, because she asked my very first day on the building principal, like, how old are you? I said, 35. I've taught more years than you left. There's nothing you're going to tell me I don't know. And I said, well, I got that part right. Okay, so she comes to me one day, she goes, watch how my children can march down to the cafeteria. And you can almost see these kids wanting to do these little salutes. Now, middle school people, what happens to salute? Preach it, sister, preach it. Yeah, there you go. See, but what happens then is they were, now, make sure you dress warm enough. Make sure you have your snow pants on. Wear your boots. Are you wearing, those are not boots for outside? Do you have something to cover your head? Where's your, you know. And see, where's all the decisions being made by this kid? A voice outside of their head or inside? Outside. Little problem I have learned. What happens when this kid starts pubing? To the hearing. How many got teenagers? What happens to the hearing, particularly teenage daughters? It's like having a pet Wolverine, isn't it? With all the emotions, right? See, what happens now is that there's no voice, okay, that they can listen to as an adult. Why? Because it's not cool. Here's my little problem. If Sweet Ange has not had an opportunity to experience going hungry one day, getting cold one day, there's no voice up here that starts to create that executive function that Russell Barkley talks about. Barkley is the guru on attention deficit disorder, behavioral issues. And see, Barkley's always talking about kids being able to develop this time horizon that basically says, honey, your quality of life is based upon the quality of decisions that you make. Make bad decisions, bad things will happen. Right? Okay? And see, now, when she gets to be a teenager, and she can't listen to this voice, whose voice does she listen to? Let's go drinking. School is for fools. And then there would be some little boy that would have the urge to merge with her. They would, wouldn't they? And then the parents look at them and say, well, you know, she's such a good little girl back in the elementary school, but then she went to that den of iniquity in the middle school. You know, now she's got all these bad friends. She's got all these bad friends. Like, how do you think this happened? This happened because we had this type of classroom management and parenting style. My ugliest staff in service. And I knew something was up when I went in the lounge that day with my lunch tray and everybody moved away from me. It's like, oh God, this is going to be really ugly. And you know what they were upset about, Ange? They were upset because I was not monitoring kids wearing boots and snow pants out on the playground. Well, what did you do in the past? I mean, this is like my first principalship, and thankfully my last. Well, Frank, the previous principal, he used to call all the parents of kids that didn't wear boots and didn't wear snow pants. Now, as the elementary principal, I had 640 kids in 2 different buildings. Now, if I called all the 5,000 parents, because a lot of them don't have just 2 parents, right? And I said, I'm not doing that. Well, Frank did it. And I said, Frank had no life. Frank also went through 4 marriages. And no again of being here in the building till 9 o'clock at night. Well, Frank was very dedicated. I said, no, Frank was neurotic. Like, well, I just, I think we should monitor snow pants more. I do a presentation one day in Kokomo, Indiana, where I'm still working for Love and Logic. School board policy, all kids will wear snow pants until March 1. Mid-February. But it's 70 degrees then. The white kids are coming off the playground, they look like little radishes, And the black kids are looking at me like, yes, Mo, you white people get it. And I mean, hello. See, what a great opportunity. Because they said, well, what would you do with these kids? I said, well, frankly, I would want to go ahead and create a situation that instead of me trying to direct this kid by a voice inside their head, I want to create a voice, outside their head. I want to create a voice inside their head. See, like, I'm working one night with a guy, he's got 9 DWIs. This is when I still have my office up in La Crosse. And it's getting late in the day, and I'm kind of like had it up to here, listening to people whining and sniveling. And he's like, the reason why I got all these tickets is them damn cops in La Crosse. And finally I looked at him, I said, let me fill you in, dude. You are not that important. The La Crosse Police Department is just looking for you. You got a drinking problem. 9 DWIs, you got a little problem with the drinking. You got a little problem with the drinking. So, what I said was, hey, how about we take an approach to the little buggers this way? If we wind up saying, wow, and just walk up to a kid, and what happens if you sat at a plastic desk for 2 hours with wet pants and not wet underwear? It does what? It itches, thank you. See, what I want to do is I want to go to Little Festus, and I want to say, and I wouldn't say this loud so the whole rest of the class would say, hear it, but I'd say, dude, does it ever itch in places you can't see? Yeah. What do you think you're going to do tomorrow? It'll be exciting to see. So, step number 1 in creating this voice internally is give kids tasks that are developmentally appropriate. Give a kid a task that's developmentally appropriate. Will this vary from kid to kid? Especially if they might be a kid that's an autistic kid. But see, sometimes parents are competitive. Well, my kid has autism. And your point is, that's a diagnosis, it's not an excuse. In the real world, nobody cares that you're autistic, right? I mean, I got a kid with a learning disorder. He's got attention deficit disorder. We just told him, it's a diagnosis, it's not an excuse. In the adult world, nobody will care that you have ADD. You will still be expected to perform like everybody else. And so that once you leave Camelot, aka public schools, this is the way it's going to roll. This is what's going to wind up having to happen. So, is it also helpful for me, everything I present, back it up with a story? Because you learn better from lecture stories. Okay. Anyways, so, step number 2 is, when the kid makes a mistake, blows it, should we get upset or not upset? You should be deliriously happy. We go into prayer going, oh dear God, please allow it to go bad. Okay? Because what's child abuse? It's love without discipline. I want to when my kids were little, I wanted to let them make a whole bunch of mistakes when the price tag was affordable. Because what happens to life's lessons as they get older? It goes up or goes down? Always goes up. See, when you, and you really got a window from about 0 to 12 to change kids' behavior. Anything beyond 12, I'll cap your HMO out long before I'm going to make big behavioral changes. I mean, I'm just telling you that. It's just really not going to happen. Because prior to that, you've got that value system that you're still kind of forming. So I was okay with letting them make a mistake, I'm good to go with it. All right, so, step 3 is with lots of empathy. And see, the key with this is not to be sarcastic, but to be empathetic. See, the empathy hands the problem back to the kid. It puts the problem back on the kid. Bummer. Itches there, doesn't it? Okay. So we gotta be able to hand it back in a loving, kind way. All right. Now, step 4 is give the task all over again. So I'm going to give you a parenting one, and then let me give you a teacher one. Okay, how we lock this one in. All right, so what were the 4 steps again? Give a task that's developmentally appropriate. Step number 2, don't flip out if they blow it. Be happy. Okay. Step 3, with lots of empathy, allow the consequence to occur. And step 4, give that task all over again. The reason why we're giving it over again is, see, and Chuck, this will be one of the things we'll talk about with bus drivers. They think it's okay to go over the rules of the bus once, twice, and then boom, you're good to go. Here's a little statistic I'll give you. It takes kids between 22 and 55 times to develop procedural learning. So just because you go over the classroom rules and expectations once, maybe twice, how do we walk down the hall? They're not going to get it. The other thing you have to remember is you've got a fair number of kids in this community that live in poverty. Don't you? And see, those are kids that there's a whole complete different spin on their life growing up. Those are kids that have experienced a lot of trauma. Kids who grow up in families where there's alcoholism, chemical dependency, there's trauma, domestic violence, that's trauma. That's why you've got so many kids struggling with anxiety disorders. That has a huge impact on your classroom performance. That's why when the state comes back and tries to evaluate you and go, oh yeah, you know, you're up to, you know, state standards or not, throw that stupid thing away, from my standpoint, because it doesn't really measure what's really going on. Because whoever dreamt that exam up was in this nice little desk in this nice little cubicle and had no idea what life's like out in Rushford-Peterson. Agree to disagree? You want me to go to, you know, to Twin Cities and advocate for you too with that. But see, that's the thing that real often is that people don't have a real clear understanding of how much behavior has now impacted the academic world. I mean, it's completely different. The kids that you see now every day in the classroom, but they're a little sketchy, those are kids that used to be in inpatient behavioral units years ago when I was in the classroom. I mean, you did not have that degree of pathology. Okay, so let's give you first off a parenting example. And then, is school secretary, is she here? Yes, no? Here's for you. This is just for you. Okay. I get a telephone call in the middle of an appointment, okay? And it's still working, right? Yeah. Okay, all right. Anyways, Amy's now about to turn 25 years old. She'll turn 25 on Feb 26th. She's in 3rd grade, so you know this is back a little ways. So phone rings, middle of appointment. I'm so stupid I pick it up. I'm thinking it's a doctor, okay? And of course, anybody not married to a doctor in here, right? You know the difference between God and a doctor, don't you? No, God doesn't think he's a doctor. Okay, so I picked the phone up. It's the poor school secretary. Mr. Gasser, we have Amy here in the office today, and she's forgotten her lunch. Really? Are you still there, Mr. Gasser? Yes, I am. What should we do? I don't know. I have my lunch. And I hung up. I am mad. It's like, you called me because my kid doesn't have a lunch? Give me a break. What is the #1 healthcare issue of American kids? Obesity, isn't it? That's why we got to promote bigger gym. All right. So, day she calls me back. And see, part of the reason why you call back is you fielded a lot of those snarky telephone calls, haven't you? You know, like I had one telephone call, the woman's drunk. She's calling my secretary all kinds of just vulgar names. And she hands the phone to me, she goes, "Here, this is the reason why you get the big bucks." So she transfers the call into my office, and the woman's calling me everything about a white man. So I just put the receiver in the desk drawer and just shut the drawer. Get back out in the doorway and kind of smiling. She goes, "Well, I'm impressed. How did you get her off the phone?" I didn't. She's still on the phone. "Well, why aren't you talking to her?" "Because she doesn't want to listen to anything that I have to say, so I just let her wear down a little bit." So anyway, but she calls me back. She goes, "I think we got disconnected." I said, "No, I hung up on you." "Well, what should we do?" I said, "I want you to run," now listen to these wise words. "I want you to run your school the exact same way I run my home, where all kids are expected to own and solve problems that they create in a way that does not cause a problem for anybody else in the world." See, that's your school policy, your discipline policy. You want me to say it again?
Yes.
Kids should be expected to own and solve the problems that they create. See, we do way too much enabling. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about when is it appropriate to rescue, when is it not appropriate to rescue. But anytime you violate the 51-49 principle, and that means I will help you, sweet child, up to 49% because it's ethically appropriate. I will never help you 51%. See, if I'm helping kids 51%, what are you doing to their self-esteem? Building it up or tearing it down? You're tearing it down. The unconscious message says, you are too stupid to figure this out. You will never see school systems be high academic flyers where there's a pervasive standard of educational enabling. It will not happen. You will also, Chuck, see a huge turnover in staff because these kids will wear staff out. Realistically, who should be the most tired at the end of the day? The kids. It should not be the staff. I'll come right back in just a second. Sadly enough, I all too often see teachers far more tired and put far more energy into this learning process than I see kids. And I see teachers, you know, lots of times you're in the building till 5, 6 o'clock at night. That's scary. Because then what you're also doing is you're taking away from your own fams, you know, energy for that. And then after a period of time, what? You don't even have energy for these other kids, and it just wears you out. Is that making some sense? So this is all about maintaining good boundaries and limits. I end the conversation with this poor secretary by just simply saying, I don't care what you do with my kid today, but I better not find out that you gave her a free lunch. Because if you have given her a free lunch, you will have to deal with me tomorrow, and I will not be sweet and fun. Now, later that day in the teacher's lounge, do you think I got the Parent of the Year award? Or I just got the JPN diagnosis? Just plain nuts. But did I do the right thing? Yeah. Because see, what I did is I let my kids have to own and solve problems. And hurt from where? Outside in or inside out? Inside out. Who's going to be part of this intervention at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon? God. Because what are those little stomach nerves saying? Great idea. Skip lunch again. Don't forget your lunch tomorrow. And see, the payoff was in 5th grade one day. Sweet Amos and I were in the van together. She goes, Dad, I want you to know that I never forgot my lunch after that again. You were going to say something. It was going to be profound and I cut you off.
No, it's okay. I think, like, you're saying how the kids have changed so much now, like 20 years ago. I think that the parents have too, because, like, for example,
Preach it.
there's
I know
like
what you're
10
gonna say.
kids that forget their shoes over winter and they can't play FIAD. So you gotta call home, you gotta say, hey, so-and-so forgot their shoes, can you bring them? So parents bring them in. Where I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
I'd say,
Can I give
that
you a
sucks,
label
you're
for
gonna have
that?
to,
Oh, I
take
know.
an F
You
for the day
get
in
to see
FIAD.
the worst of the worst. I mean, they're in there for God, all kinds of things. And I'll put a little bow on that in a moment. But that's what we call helicopter parents. Helicopter parents are the ones that hover around all the time. They get into rant, rave, and rescue, and then they bail the kid out again anyways. And then they're so surprised that by middle school, I don't understand. They just don't do their schoolwork. They're just very irresponsible. They don't make good decisions. And the lost and found box becomes what? It becomes a mountain. You know, I'm thinking you'd like to read over the letter I created for my wife, for her parents in her classroom on educational enabling. And if you want that, my email address, I think, is in the front of this handout, isn't it? Send me an email and say, send me the letter that you created for Sue. And what it is, in fact, when we take a little break, maybe I'll wind up bringing the letter out for you. But what it does is it just puts the problem back on moms and dads and say, you know, the more you rescue kids, the more you tear their self-esteem down. Okay? All right.
If I didn't call, I'd get hear from the parent about how I didn't call, now
Oh,
the
I know.
kid missed Fayed and.
Oh. I mean, you'd be walking out of the building definitely having pieces of I am believing that. But, you know, I think that's one of the things that you want to step back as a district and look at long-term. If we generally are really trying to bump up academic scores and creating kids for the real world. See, here's another example. How long should your parent-teacher conference last? Don't give it away. How long should it last? 2 to 3 minutes is all the more you need for a parent-teacher conference. Some of you are rolling into what? 20, 30 minutes? That's ridiculous. Because what that really tells you is you got a pretty dysfunctional parent, and that parent psychologically has a strong need to live vicariously through their kid. Now, is that always true? Not always, but a high degree of the time it is. A high degree of the time it is. See, all we ever wanted to know with our kids is did they match the 3 R's? Is my kid a respectful kid? Because if I got a respectful kid, then what's that say that they have mastered? Social reciprocity and joint attention. It's just good social skill. I mean, as a supervisor for Mayo, did I ever have to terminate anybody? As a principal, did I ever have to terminate anybody? Yeah. Was it fun? No. And did you have to terminate people because they didn't know how to do their job, or they didn't do what they were told and shut their mouth? Which is it? Didn't do what they were told. See, you want to ask the question is, does my kid come into the classroom, sit down, shut up, and do what they're told? Boom. That means that they got basic German Shepherd mastered. That's huge. And a lot of you, here's another problem is, in your homes, a lot of your kids do not have basic German Shepherd mastered. And here's what basic German Shepherd looks like. Basic German Shepherd it comes out of this little diagram of a mom and dad, and kind of this, I'm gonna write the word kid because it's shorter than child. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. All right, I gotta make sure my D's go in the right direction. A lot of your kids have not been exposed to what I call parent-child hierarchy. This really comes developmentally out of 0 to 2. See, 0 to 2, all kids have got to be able to know and respect authority. If you can't do that, sweet child, your educational career is going to really be jaded. You'll learn, but you're not going to learn up to potential. Why? Because you're into way too many hassles with a teacher. You know, rather than you doing what you're told and being able to settle down and focus on dangling participles on sentence structure, they're into what? What type of crazy thing can I do to get back at the teacher? See, and the other problem will be is this, is if mom and dad don't have real good boundaries and limits, you'll start to see this kid up in the middle of a marriage. Little free marital counseling. If mom and dad cannot agree on how to parent Festus, this marriage is in trouble. This is the direction it's going. And then see what will happen is that, Chuck,
This same dynamic is gonna come to school. Parents will line over here, school will line over here, and then you start to get the splinter. This is where it's really important to have all those classroom behavioral expectations right out of the chute. You know, if you read any Harry Wong stuff, I don't know if you're familiar with Harry Wong, but Harry is the dude on how do you get everything ready to roll for school. That's just setting all of those types of behavioral expectations. A lot of your homes, that's not there. So then, now, that starts coming to school. For you to be able to teach, I gotta get this modeled in my classroom. So a lot of the very same dynamics that are not happening at home, because look at the amount of your kids that you're working with come from fractured families, don't they? I mean, the idea of having a biological mom and dad together is kind of a thing of the past. Let me give you an example of this. I got a patient of mine, she's also a student of mine, and she's looking at our family portrait, and this is funny, but it's not. She's looking at her family portrait on my wife's desk, and the little bugger comes up to my wife and goes, "Who are their dads?" Her mom had 4 kids too, but 4 different dads. It didn't register that we have these monogamous relationships. You know, that we have moms and dads, and this is how it rolls. You come from that type of background, and now this kid rolls into your school system. Can you see the difference in values and belief systems and where they've come from? These aren't always kids that are trying to be a BRAT. They're just trying to adjust and cope. And then look at the number of your kids that bounce from different home during the course of the school year, or different district during the course of the school year. It just gets really, really crazy. So, okay, let's talk a little bit for a moment about rules of rescue. When do you rescue, when do you not rescue? Is that valuable? Okay, yes, ma'am. Yep, you bet. Respectful, and let's go with second R. Is my kid responsible? Is my kid resourceful? If they got a problem, do they know how to? Thanks for catching me on that, helping me out. If they got a problem, do they know how to fix it? See, that's why it was so important for me to let Amy go hungry that day. I mean, just absolutely critical. By the time our kids were up in high school, we did start to get this feedback from staff. It's like, can't you guys create more kids? Like, why? Because you got really good kids and they're not a behavioral problem. And see, in our home, if you got in trouble in school, that was just kind of the beginning of what was going to happen when you got home. That's not true anymore, is it? In the families. See how things are just different? Okay. Rules of rescue. Do you rescue a kid if life and limb are in danger? I mean, we don't take the kindergarten class on a field trip over to, you know, Highway 43 where the stoplight is and go, hey kid, I can't wait to see if you're gonna be round or flat. That would just kind of be tacky. That would be tacky. So you rescue if life and limb are in danger. Number 2, I will rescue the kid if there's absolutely no way that this kid can bail themselves out of it. I mean, if they can't fix the problem. So let me give you an example of that. Sweet Amos, 4th grade. She's got an emotionally disturbed kid in her classroom, which I know this kid is going to be a problem. The kid's a conduct disorder kid. How do I know? Because he'd been on my caseload. And I expressed some concerns to the building principal about having this kid mainstream. Of course, we were a school district that if you have a heartbeat, we'll mainstream you. That's like, no, you don't mainstream all kids. Not a smart choice. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how do you deal with bully behavior, and we gave her some good bully skills. And it's like, oh, Dad, I can stand up to him. You know, I can stand up to Jordan. Well, Thanksgiving time rolls around. She comes home one day and she's in tears. And what he'd done is he'd come up behind her. She had kind of loose fit and sweatpants on. He sticks his hands down the front of her pants. As a parent, do I have to get involved? I gotta step in on that one. I gotta deal with that type of thing. Also, I will rescue, a third reason to rescue, if it's a sin of omission versus commission. It's a sin of omission versus commission. What it boils down to is they didn't know any better. So your 16-year-old, the very first snow, icy roads, is it reasonable to expect that car will probably be in the ditch? That's a sin of omission. However, if you loan them a car to go to a job interview, bless you, in the Twin Cities, and it overheats, and you keep driving it to the point that it breaks the cylinder head, that's now a sin of commission. See the difference between those two? Okay. Yes, ma'am?
Earlier you were talking about how there's like a window of opportunity that closes when they're 12.
Yeah, beyond that.
Okay, well, what do you tell the high school teachers to figure out, to have their child, you know, if they are just hearing outside voices then, how do you expect them to have
Inside voices. We just still keep working the exact same process. It just is gonna take longer. It just takes longer. And, you know, is that any great option? No. Here's the reason why I can back that up though. I also do a lot of work with alcoholics. What's the first step in AA that you've heard of? See, it's acknowledging that my drinking has caused a problem in my life. Where's the hurt coming from at that point for the alcoholic? Inside or outside? See, AA has a phrase. This is the phrase that the high school teachers use too. When you become sick and tired of being sick and tired, then you'll change your behavior. Now, I have to say that very carefully because somebody could take that in the wrong way and think, great, let them go ahead and go fail. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about ways to assess when they're doing poorly academically. I want to be able to step back and take a look at what am I going to do different. But what I'm not going to get into is, I'm not going to get into lots of this educational enabling that does more to harm than to help. Okay? Is that making some sense? Rule of rescue 4. I'll rescue you if you don't expect to be rescued. See, some kids just expect to be rescued, don't they? So situations that you wouldn't rescue would be obviously the exact opposite direction. If you expect me to rescue you, that's not happening. See, that's giving the kids a false sense of security that something's going to happen when it can't. I mean, after John Hinckley shot President Reagan, I mean, it's like if he called me up and I'm his dad, I might say, gee, John, you could swing for this one. You know, I can hang you for this. Okay? Because there's just certain things that you can't bail people out. But we've become a society that expects to be bailed out, don't we? I mean, a classic example would be Hurricane Katrina. I mean, how bright do you have to be to figure out if your home is here, the ocean is here, and if there's a weather report that says a hurricane's coming in with cataclysmic nature, do you still stay in your home? No. And see, interview those people 2-3 days later that were in the Superdome because they had no place to go. Were they happy that they were just alive? Or were they angry at the government? They're angry at the government. See, some of us are old enough here to remember John F. Kennedy. What was Kennedy's most famous speech on this very topic? Ask not but what your country can do for you. See, we have raised a society of people that do not expect that bad things should happen to them. But your quality of life always depends upon the quality of the decisions that you make. You start to develop that degree of time horizon. And everybody in this room has had to learn it at some point in time. So by allowing my kid to fail, gives them the opportunity to choose success, doesn't it? Okay? And I fail over little things. Not things that are going to wind up killing them, but things that are small little things. Like I'm okay with kids getting hungry. I'm okay with kids getting cold. I'm okay with kids having to walk because they can't ride in the van. This was kind of a fun one. I got all 4 kids in the van, because my wife and I have 4 kids. And I got the little brood, and we're coming back from lacrosse one day, and they're just little monsters in the back of the van. You see, as shrinks, sometimes your kids are not well behaved either. And kids always listen when you wind up letting go of the steering wheel when you're going down the interstate. I had a little conversation with my son. I was like, wow, the last mile home's gonna be really, really quiet. Oh, why is that? Because you'll be the only one in the van. Oh, what a great idea. So about a half a mile away from home, I stopped and said, okay, everybody out. Do we gotta walk all the way out? Not if you run. Where am I letting them hurt? Inside out or outside in? Yes, ma'am.
I am totally guilty of the.
Helicopter.
Yes, because I live 2 blocks. Mom, I forgot my shoes, or Mom, I forgot my dance outfit. Totally guilty of that. So can you help maybe work through how do you?
With this neighbor's child?
No, it's my own. But
We always fabricate a little bit, same with the neighbor's child.
so can you explain a little bit of how to prepare? So kindergartner, should I put like a little schedule up? What day is it today? What do we need today?
Hump day.
Yeah, right. How do you prepare kindergartner, for instance? Okay, it's Monday, just that's my only reminder kind of thing.
Hang on 1 second. Let me put a bow on this. Then, as soon as I get that done, then you raise your hand again like you never even asked that question. Say, with the neighbor's child. Okay, so otherwise, I want to make this all roll succinctly. Here's also one I don't rescue. I don't rescue kids if you violated policy or you violated a law. Like, where are the coaches? You guys over here in Coach's Corner. Okay. See, here's an example of what not to do in rescuing. Choma is horrible in basketball. We're usually like 0-1 million every year. And my kid's playing Choma basketball, and he's maybe getting to play change on the court because he's just not very good. And senior year rolls around, and of course we're not doing well, and coach is going, well, let's have an extra basketball practice on 12/31. Well, because we have this extra basketball practice on 12/31, what do we have to do on the evening of 12/31? You're right, rehydrate. What would you rehydrate with? Gatorade? Or what do some kids rehydrate it with on 12/31? Sure, Jack Daniels. Okay, so these kids take a picture of themselves, holding a quart bottle of Jack Daniels, have a drink. What's the next really stupid thing that you could do with it?
Put it on Facebook.
Take pics and post it. Put it on your wall. So of course, what's the athletic director have to do on Monday? Dudes, dudettes. Suspends them. Tuesday, what do the parents come in with? They lawyered up. Well, how do you know they're drinking? Well, they look a little drunk in this picture. Did you do a blood alcohol on them? No, but again, they look pretty drunk. Well, therefore you don't know if they were really drinking. Our kids talked to us about this, and what they told us was they put Jack Daniels out and they put apple juice in it. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. See, one of those kids, here's the sad part of this is, one of those kids that was on that basketball team had 11 underage drinking tickets. And then wound up flunking out of school. Out of college. I mean, he graduated, because mom and dad did a lot of helicoptering to get him through that. Graduated, I have no idea what the kid's doing right now. But if you go back and take a look at, historically, when you do a drug and alcohol drinking history, where do most kids start abusing that alcohol? In school. That's where that gets started. Okay. Damn, we're not going to. We're getting close. We're getting close. Okay. If you have to rescue, here's the last one. I'll crush this down. If you have to rescue, which is there other people at the Calfee starting to kind of come through? We have either two options. I can stop so you can go to the bathroom, or we can catheterize. Probably you're gonna vote on one. But if you have to rescue, I put that in my notes. If you have to rescue, then rescue. But put a comma at the end of it, not a period. If you have to rescue, then rescue. Got that?
Yeah.
However, short-term gain always creates long-term pain. So if I rescue you now, what I did is I just set you up for failure. I set you up for failure. Have you got like 2 minutes? And your bladders won't quite burst? Now we can talk about the neighbor's child. Ask your questions.
So it's, how do you teach some of that internal?
Locus of control.
Yes.
Okay.
Like for kindergartners, let's say, how do you start that?
Good answer, good question. Here's your answer. Procedural learning. See, what procedural learning is, I do this again and again and again. It's just like a stroke victim where you have to rewire their brain for those muscles to compensate, so now we connect muscle, brain together. What you're doing is you're creating that wiring pattern for this kid, so now it's locked in. Now what if it's a kid with a letter disorder? Do more of it. See, attention deficit disorder kids, the reason why they are what they are is because it's this lack of brain activity in frontal cortex. How do you compensate? Well, you drug them. But pills don't take the place of skills. They still gotta learn the skill of how do I get myself organized in the morning. So what you do is you have training sessions. And you can train for all kinds of different things. So an example could be is we could spend all Saturday training to get ready in the morning. What things do we do? And then we just do what? Go over it again and again and again. And I would recommend that you gotta do it enough that you have 3 perfect ones. How many have neighbors' children that have problems getting up in the morning? Training session. So I gotta take a shower a 4th time? That would be true. How often do we gotta keep doing this? I don't know. So I don't have to worry about it. You know where this idea came from? When I was kids. How many ever been on the phone and your kids went nuts in the background? Or you want to just like kill them? It's like, what a great reason for retroactive birth control. You know? And I get a telephone call one day to go ahead and go do a parenting presentation. Yeah, and my kids are going nuts in the background. Have you ever kind of gone into another room hoping that they won't hear? I go out on the front porch. I can hear through their walls. You thought there was a massacre going on. So finally I just said to the woman, I said, I gotta call you back. She goes, I wondered how long you were gonna put up with it. I'm not. So I brought the brood into the living room and I said, okay, here's what. When your old man gets hired to go do parenting presentations, does it improve your quality of life? Oh yeah, we get to travel, this is when they're little. We get to travel on with you, we get to swim in the pool. They thought swimming in the pool was a big deal back then, you know. I said, okay, what do you think the likelihood is of me getting hired to go do a parenting presentation when they hear you guys killing each other in the bathroom? Not good, great thinking, okay. So we're gonna do a little phone therapy. What's phone therapy? I want you to find a spot in the house that I don't have to see you or hear you for 20 minutes. Of course, my attention deficit disorder kid, also a little snarky, goes, what do you have to do? What do you do if you have to go to the bathroom? I don't know, what would a smart kid do? Go to the bathroom, and a dumb kid, have a wet spot. Go figure. And that's what we did for the rest of Sunday. We just practiced phone therapy. How many have neighbors' kids who fight in the car? Could you practice riding the car with the car just sitting in the driveway? You go out there with your cappuccino, your latte, you know, bring a book, do a little, you know, play a little Candy Crush like my wife would do. We set the timer on the dash, and guess what? We just wind up, I just killed the baby.
Hold the button and
Really? I'm good to go? Share, messing with, maybe this button.
Oh, hello?
There you go.
Here we go. I do that with a lot of families, is just say, park the car in the garage, park the car in the driveway, and we just practice riding. If it takes 20 minutes to get to church, guess what we get to do? We'll sit for 20 minutes. Screw it up and go 17, oh, this is sad. Now, would all the kids have to practice it, or just the kid that's screwing it up?